Hey YouTube, and welcome to another episode of Shenzo Plays. Today we're hopping back into Powerwash Simulator. We'll probably continue the uh, Laura Croft back before we move on to the next one. It's been a good time. It's just going to be chill, listening to music and yapping today, so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please leave a like or a comment on it. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Ring that bell if you want to get notified when a new video drops. Follow me on all my social media down below. And thank you so much for watching. Quick and easy intro today, YouTube. I love you. See you on the other side. Hey YouTube, welcome on in. Sorry about that. I forgot to hit the recording, so we did kind of get started a little bit here. But you didn't miss too much. We literally just walked over and started here. Hi, is that your friend behind you? You mean Tanner Boy? Because there isn't anybody behind me, but welcome on in. And the Dreamer. If there is somebody behind me, well, that's pretty terrifying. That's like something straight out of a horror movie. Is it just me and 4 animals in the house? A Tanner Boy. Thought I'd seen someone walk past you. Nope. Shouldn't be. There isn't anyone else in the house. That might be my eyes. Oh, it's all good. Look, or it could be a ghost. You know, look, I don't want to rule anything out at this point. But welcome on in. It's good to have you here. I hope you're doing well. Oh, it was the light changing? Ghost might want a game. True. Hey, look, I was just talking about wanting more collabs. I'll definitely team up with ghosts. I ain't afraid of no ghosts. Okay, that's not entirely true. I'm actually terrified of certain ghosts. I played Phasmophobia. But, you know, that's... Yeah, that's a different story entirely. Yeah, I'm okay. Oh, hang on, sorry guys. 1 second. Tanner, no. No. Stop looking. All right. Alright, sorry about that. Thought so also. I thought it was Tanner walking. Depending on where Tanner is, you can see him at the very bottom of the frame. Yeah. Oh, hang on. Tanner, stop. No. Don't lick that. Don't lick it. No licky. No licky the wound, okay? Sorry, guys. Have to be a doggy dad here. For those that are just joining or who didn't know, Tanner, we think he pulled a muscle on Sunday. So he's also been dealing with some skin allergies. So he's bored out of his mind. He's hurt. He's not feeling good. And, you know, he's okay. Like, he's not in, like, so much pain that it's like, oh my god, why aren't you taking him to the emergency vet? But it's more like he's got a little bit of a limp right now because I think he pulled a muscle chasing the cats around. And for those that don't know, he turns 11. He turns 11 here in about a month. So he's, you know, he's not a spring chicken anymore. Yeah, he keeps going for his injured leg, and unfortunately, there's like a. You know, one of those cysts I was talking about earlier there. And if he keeps licking it, he's gonna, you know, open it back up, and then it's at risk of being getting infected again, so I gotta kinda keep an eye on it. Yeah, may have to get the cone of shame, we'll see. But I will say this, Tanner handles the cone extremely well. He's just a bit of a menace with it because he's so big that he does knock some people in. But yeah, overall I'm okay. You know, just trying to be a doggy dad. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night because Tanner was very restless and was having a little bit of trouble getting up on certain areas of the tile floor. I'll be honest with you. I have thought multiple times about replacing the tile in my house, but the problem is it's just so easy to clean that I don't want to. But he's okay. You know, he can get up, he can walk. He's just being a little bit of a brat right now. But we got a vet appointment for him on Thursday, which for YouTube is 2 days from now, because it's the earliest they could get him in. And the only other places that would consider seeing him are emergency vets, but I would have to probably wait like 10 to 12 hours, and even then it's not guaranteed, because his condition is not life-threatening. And, you know, they gotta prioritize. And now Tanner's sitting there. I know dogs don't really, like, laugh, but I feel Tanner does. Like, he gets a gleam in his eye when he looks at me, and he starts, like, panting, even though he hasn't done, like, any exercise or his temperature's fine. So, he's a very expressive dog. Rather than change the floor, maybe tape down a roll of brown paper, like a runner type way, then he can gain traction, maybe. So, Silly, that's a great idea, and we've tried it. He literally tore the tape off because he's so big. When like he lays down on it, and the reason he goes for the tile is because it's cool. So it's a really great way for him to just kind of like chill out and cool off. But yeah, we would need to get like really, really like powerful tape for it. And even then, there's no guarantee that he won't like destroy or rip off the runner, because he has done that before. I do have 2 runner rugs that are supposed to stick to the tile floor. They don't stick anymore because of Tanner. But it's a great idea. It's just unfortunately Tanner is he's a big boy. He's a very, very big boy. He's 115 pounds for those that don't know. Brainstorming poor Tanner boy, of course you already tried it. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, like I really do my best to look after him. You know, we've talked about this before, but he is, in many ways, the light of my life. For those that don't know, I'm not married. I don't even have any sort of relationship or anyone in my circle that I'm even remotely interested in. And, you know, he's probably the closest thing I'm going to have to kids. Because I got to be honest, I don't feel confident bringing a child into the world with the current state of things. But, yeah, it's, he's my boy, and I'm looking after him to the best of my ability. Relationship who? Never heard of it before. I know, right? I've had one relationship, and then a bunch of almost relationships that ended in disaster. Call me out for having kids? Yep, that's exactly what my intention was, Silly, 100%. To call you out specifically, and no one else's. Absolutely my intention. Yep. Had one, ended very badly. Yeah, my one didn't end very well either, I'll be honest. Like, it didn't end as badly as it could have. But yeah. Sergeant McIntyre, to be fair, my wife and I don't have kids either, partially for the same reasons. Yeah, you know, and the thing is, when you choose to have a kid, and I'm a very big believer that it should always be a choice, right? You know, whatever your reasons may be, it's your choice. I don't feel I have a right to comment on that decision to have kids or not for any couple, right? But I know for me, I was, you know, there was a point where I considered having kids. But just with the way things have been going, and I'm not just necessarily talking about politics, although I'm sure a lot of people immediately go there. I'm talking about, you know, the way companies treat people these days, you know, global conflicts, the collective societal response to COVID. Those are all factors in why I personally probably will not have kids. Then also there's the fact that, you know, I also have to take into consideration, you know, my age and, you know, what I would want to do when it comes to, you know, having children at that point. So there's a couple other things that are more personal I won't get into, but that's just when I talk about it like that. I don't mean like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're having kids or you had kids. No. It's an individual decision, but that's just my reasons for not wanting to have kids. Decided when I was 17 I would never bring children into this world. Yeah. You know, and some people, you know, they stick to that, right, Sinky? I'm a very big believer in choosing to have kids is a decision that needs to be made by the couple. You know? And that's that. You know? I don't know. For me, no one ever needs to justify their decision to have kids or not. Ever. You did use the marks this time, and I'm very proud of you for that. When my aunt got married, she and her husband both were of that mind, and that was 15 years ago. Yeah. You know, again, it's different for everybody, right? You know, having a child is, one, a very big decision, and it is not one I think anyone should make lightly, ever. Two, you know, there is a lot of responsibility for being a parent. Having a children, having a children. Oh my God, English, Shenzo. What is it? Having children is what I have been heard as having a wonderful, wonderful blessing, you know, for most of the parents I know, right? But also, it's a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice that goes into that. And anyone, you know, any decent parent will tell you that, like, yeah, having kids is not easy. It is not easy at all. And man, I gotta tell you, with everything going on in the world, you know, whether it's politics or society or the internet in general, I think raising children is very, very difficult to do today. And I'm not saying it wasn't difficult in the past, but I'm saying there are new things here that make it challenging. Like internet access, video games, how much time do they get to play outside? God, I mean, the list goes on. And I can just tell you guys, I do not think I would get very overwhelmed. And I do not think I would be a good dad because of that. I don't think I would be able to bring my best because I would be so overwhelmed and so stressed out. All the time. And that's why I have a lot of respect for anyone who chooses to make that decision. Or if you're like, you know, the sergeant and his wife who made the decision not to. And I have a lot of respect for that too. You know, for me, I'll just be honest. One of the biggest reasons why I don't think I'm going to have a relationship anytime soon is I do not like people, collectively. I do not have a very high opinion of humanity as a whole. And it's kind of hard to enter into a relationship that's supposed to be built on, you know, love and trust and honesty, when you just don't like most people. So, That's why I choose not to do that. But for anyone who does, I commend you. And as I said before, it really isn't any of my business, one way or the other. Now, I can tell you, Shoshima's kids, they're fantastic. They are wonderful, wonderful children, and I love hanging out with them. I love seeing them. I think they are so sweet, and I think that both Sho and his lovely wife Kristen have done an amazing job raising those two. But with that being said, they can be a handful at times, and I don't know how they do it. I really don't. But I have so much respect for both of them for doing that. I prefer pets. I'll be honest. I prefer dogs. I'm a big dog guy. I love me dogs. And even though I have kind of decided that I'm not really a cat dad, I have been really enjoying my time with Mongo, Aguacate, and Coco. But, yeah, just to kind of emphasize why I don't think I would be a very good dad, I mentioned at the start of stream, YouTube, for those that, didn't get to hear it, that, I didn't get, any sleep last night because I was worried about Tanner, who has a non-life-threatening injury that I'm pretty sure the solution is going to be, just give him painkillers and you'll be good to go. I am pretty sure that is what the vet is going to tell me when I see them on Thursday. And yet, I'm sitting here, stressed out about it. So, it is definitely a sign that, with young kids, I think I would be a lot more worried and a lot more stressed out about it. But that's just my take. I think he says children are difficult. Yeah, I'll be honest. I for those that don't know, I was a substitute teacher for a couple years. I did it for about 2 years or so. And I pretty quickly realized that I didn't really handle kids super well. Which is funny because when people are like, oh, you interact with children, you're great. I'm like, I don't feel I'm great. But that was just a lesson I learned. Is like, yeah, I didn't feel like I did a very good job. And that's a big part of my choice. You guys can hear the music just fine, right? Okay, cool. It's not too overpowering, because, yeah, I think my headphones are dying. Because, I hear the music, but it is very, very, putting it as background noise is too much. You know what I mean? Putting it just as background noise is it's not even background noise. It's for me, the way it sounds like it's barely audible at all. But I know what I hear and what you guys hear are not the same thing. So, because I have different audio settings for that. But it's even when I have my headphones maxed out, I used to be able to hear everything pretty clearly. But I definitely feel it's been, my headphones have been losing their luster. Which makes sense. I mean, I think these headphones are now close to a decade old, so they've lasted me quite a while. I can't really be too mad about that. I've had these headphones for a very, very long time. Alrighty. think we're making pretty good progress on this, though. We started off at about 49%. We're now at 59%. I get that when I used to stream, you had a physical audio dial to control the audio. The audio levels required for stream is just too loud for your ears. Fair enough. Yeah, I'll be honest. There's still a lot about like audio and sound that I don't understand. I have a fairly decent grasp of the basics, but my general rule, just so you guys know, like what I do for audio, is I have my OBS audio mixer, right? Because like everything goes through there.
Warning!
Hi, Raidella! Thank you so much for the raid. Welcome on in, Raiders. I hope you had a great stream. But yeah, my general rule is like, if I need things to be like in background music, it's only in the green. If ideal audio, like if you want it the forefront, that has to be in the yellow zone. And if it's anything above like the early yellow, it's probably too loud. And for those that don't know, that's like minus, you know, between minus like 15 and minus like 16 on the decibel count. So, but even then, it's like, I couldn't tell you a lot of specifics there. I don't know if Sergeant has a, specific, like, guideline as well. Rainella, by the way, I'm so proud of you for giving yourself a shout-out immediately without me having to tell you. I just want to single you out on that and tell you how proud of you I am. Normally, for everyone who doesn't know, I have to, like, ask Rainella to give themselves a shout-out, to give herself a shout-out. And, she's gotten so much better at, like, giving herself props. It's awesome. Guidelines, bro, I can barely color within the lines. Fair enough! Fair enough. I guess I was just curious because it's like, with a lot of the streamers in my group, we've all kind of, like, stolen from each other as for how we set everything up. So there's not a lot of variation. So I'm like, let me ask Sergeant, since Sergeant's here, if they do anything differently. But yeah, no, I get that. Look, so, rules were made to be broken, right, Sergeant? As far as coloring in the lines, rules were made to be broken. Today was different to stream with everything going on. Yeah, I can only imagine, Rainella. I definitely hope you had a good time, a nice needed break from everything. We have missed you, but, you know, like I told you, I'm very, very glad that you're taking some time for yourself and to focus on what's important. Any recent gigs in the Ghostbuster gear? Okay, so I think we've got all the Obstacle 9 stuff with the exception of the curb. Knock that out real quick. Not recently. Last one was the Pride Parade in Augusta, Georgia, in full gear. That was a bad... Oh my god, with that humidity, I can only imagine. Thank goodness for those wonderful humans passing out ice cold bottles of water on the marching path. Otherwise, you would have been SOL. Yeah, I can only imagine, and with that heat and that humidity, oh my gosh. Sergeant, that is crazy. I'm glad to hear you're doing okay. And you got through it all right. Between son, everything with Josh, your father-in-law was a week, but I'm glad to see everyone. I missed y'all. Yeah, how's Josh doing in his new role? I hope he's doing okay. Hope he's liking it. Hey, Detective, good to see you. Welcome on in. Thanks for coming on over from the raid. 4 miles with 40 plus pounds of gear on. Oh boy, at the end, your boy was done. Look, all I can say is if I had a hat, it would be tipped to you, my friend, because that is crazy. 4 miles with 40 pounds of gear. I'm good. I can barely walk 4 miles with no pounds of gear. Started today and liking it, which makes you feel better. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. I was wondering about that. Played Infinity Nikki today. New story is, oh boy, just reminds me of Parasite Eve. Interesting. Yeah, there are quite a lot of games I know pretty much nothing about. Infinity Nikki's one of those. I can't say that I know, really anything about it, if I'm being completely honest. Alright, let's take a look. We have obstacle 8. So it looks like we got everything for 8 done. That's good. So we need obstacle 9. So we did miss one box step for obstacle 9, but we got everything else. Okay. So let's knock that out. There it is. Okay. All done. Applying to the Taco Bell job mostly as a joke, but well, you got a job interview now. Hell yeah. Yeah, so after I accepted a job, I'm now starting to get interviews. Or at least allegedly. I was told I have an interview for the local sheriff's department for a job I applied for literally 2 months ago, but it's been over a week since I've heard anything. So I have no idea if that was, like, legit or not. Or if they just moved that slowly. But it was really funny because it's like, yep, I also had someone on LinkedIn reach out to me and they're like, hey, we want to interview you for this position you applied for 3 months ago. I'm like, dude, I don't know what to tell you, but if it takes you 3 months to hire somebody, you need to reevaluate your entire hiring process. Because I can tell you with 100% certainty, it is not due to a lack of candidates. Yeah, three months. I applied for a position 3 months ago and they just got back to me. And I'm like, oh, do I really want to go on this rant today? I think I'm going to go on this rant today. The people running the vast majority of companies have no idea what they're doing anymore. Like, the illusion that the most brilliant and successful people move up in a company, for me, has been forever shattered. I have been blown away by the number of CEOs and people in high positions of power by just the sheer short-sightedness and, quite frankly, ignorance as to what makes a business successful. That these are statements that I imagine were made privately in like boardrooms before. But now they're making these statements publicly. And it's just, it's crazy to me where it's like, you are in a working environment where currently, as of this recording, which is September 2nd, I think, right? September 2nd, 2025? You have almost the entire federal workforce was laid off. 70% of it was laid off. Meaning that you have the ability to pick and choose who you want to hire if you are running a company. And you are taking 3 months to decide on a candidate. Guess what? The best candidates are probably already going to have found somewhere else to go. And it's just, it's wild to me when it's like, oh, we just laid off like 4,000 people thanks to AI. And I've used this analogy a lot, but it's like Google, which is one of the richest, most powerful, most successful companies in human history, can't even get their AI to get basic math right half the time. And you motherfuckers think you can replace 4,000 jobs? With a system that not only you don't understand, but that doesn't even work, and with one of the largest, most expensive technical companies ever created, putting the full force of their entire company behind it, and you think your like 500 employee company with not even a tenth of the technical budget can do the same thing? Just absolute arrogance and ignorance, and it's just unbelievable. Especially as some people point out, it's like they're not actually replacing people with AI, they're just offshoring positions to other companies like India. And you know, again, not gonna knock Indian workers. I've worked with some of them. They're pretty good. Some are not, just like, you know, American workers, right? Some are good, some not so much. But it's like, man, you go publicly brag about AI that doesn't work. And, woo-wee. And when, you know, you have widespread reports of like, hey, this isn't making any money or saving any money. It just, again, it just shows how out of touch, hilariously out of touch a lot of CEOs are. And that's not even counting like a lot of other things. But it's like, man, you're like openly celebrating laying off like 4,000 of your workers. A lot of CEOs do not deserve to be in their positions. They just do not. I think Detective has a great summary there. This guy meets all our qualifications, but let's wait to see if we can find someone who is even more qualified who will work for less money. Yep, that's definitely an attitude, I can tell you that much. Mash, thank you so much for subscribing at Tier 1 for 5 months. Much appreciated. Hope you're doing well. I heard recently that an AI company tried using AI to manage its database, and the AI deleted the entire database because it panicked. So I haven't heard that story, but let me put it this way, that does not surprise me. That, if it were true, that does not surprise me. Literally cut off, let me see here. I missed something from Silly here. Full story, back in 1991, a job I applied for in 1990 called for an interview. I didn't even live there anymore. They hired the person that answered the phone. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, especially back in the early 90s. That was like over the weekend, Josh Oldwell up calling him, asking if he could come help. Oh, Josh is like, I no longer work there. Yep. No, so that's another thing that a lot of companies don't seem to understand in like CEO attitudes is like, they don't understand how much experience actually matters in a job. Particularly in the tech industry, I can talk a lot more strongly there than any other field. But, like, I'll just use my old credit union as an example. The CEO, for whatever reason, hated work from home. Absolutely hated it. Irrationally so, right? And this is what ended up happening. Forced an RTO 3 days a week, despite the fact that work from home, like during COVID when this was forced, the company made more money than ever during COVID. So they forced everybody to work from home. They tried to justify this, well, it's not fair for everybody who has to come into the office. Okay, so then tell them to spend all the years I did learning and honing my craft so I could take a technical position. You know, have them learn how to code, go to school, get a degree, spend, 2 years in the salt mines before accepting this job. And then come back to me about fairness. And basically went against the entire company, forced the issue, RTO, and now they have a turnover problem. They can't keep anybody. My position has been replaced 4 times in under a year. And the golden rule in tech, if you're replacing anybody in 5 years, you have a problem. That's how it used to be anyway. I don't think that's how it is now, but in the 2010s and in the 2000s, that's how it was. Your IT team, for most companies, is usually supposed to be the most stable. I don't think that's the case anymore, but that's how it used to be. And yeah, it's like, yeah, they've replaced my old position 4 times. The entire core development team that I worked with, that prior to the RTO management, had been there for 7 to 11 years. 7 being the junior people on the team, is all gone. That credit union now is missing on, almost 30 years of combined experience between that team. Wild. Absolutely wild that they did that. And yeah, and the best part was, all they had to do was maintain the work from home arrangement and probably everybody would have stayed. That's the best part about that entire story. I would have stayed. My two of my coworkers I know would have stayed. We all wanted to stay, but it's like, hey, when you cut our pay, you give us a benefit for 4 years, and then you cut it. Guess what? And you don't replace it with anything else, including a pay raise or anything to offset it. Your skilled people are gonna leave. And that's what happened. It's just wild. Do you like 80s synthwave music? Yeah, I think synthwave's pretty good. I have to be in the mood for it, but yes, I think 80s synthwave music is very good. So Detective says the wild ones are reports where even if people think AI is making them more efficient in their job, they're often less efficient by actual stats. Yep. Yeah, definitely see if you can find that story, Sinky. I would love to read that. With how much specialized knowledge do the system IT people need to have on their specific system, replacing employees every few years seems like a massive waste. It is. It is. Have you heard of White Bat Audio? Carl Casey. I can't say that I have, Sergeant. I can't say that I have. All of his stuff is DMCA free. That's awesome. I'll have to look into that. Sergeant, I don't know if you are a member of the Discord, but if you are, if you could drop that in the music section, that would be awesome. If not, I could ask one of the mods to do it if you don't want to join the Discord for any reason. You don't need to tell me. But yeah, that would be awesome. I'm always looking for new artists. I love music. So I'm always looking for like new tunes and stuff like that. Recently, I've been on a Jonathan Young kick. If you guys don't know Jonathan Young, he's a one-man metal band, and he's pretty crazy. He does a lot of stuff. But what got me, how I first found him was he did a cover of Under the Sea from The Little Mermaid, and it was incredible. Listen to him for the Baldur's Gate 3 song, hell yeah. But yeah, the thing with AI, and, you know, again, is I've explained this before, is it's like, there are so many risks with that system, even if it all goes well. And, again, it's part of what, hang on, Tanner, don't look that. Good boy. Good boy, you know better. Yeah, he does Helldiver stuff. He does a lot of Helldiver stuff. But yeah, the thing with AI is it's like, and I've talked about this a lot, so I won't I won't spend too much time on it. But the idea that AI is going to replace workers is laughable in its current state. I don't know what it will look like in the future, so I don't feel like, and I'm never very confident about like, oh, this will never happen, because never underestimate the ability of humankind to make things worse. But in the current state of AI, no. I would say the only real jobs that AI can effectively replace right now, hilariously enough, are executive-based positions. Which is extremely funny and obviously will not happen. Because no one in the C-suite is going to be dumb enough to replace their own position with AI. Friend of mine, let's see, what's Mash saying here? A friend of mine, I went to high school with, got into IT in college, got a job with an established company, worked and learned his master's, basically got trained by the head IT guy, had been there for 30 years to replace him after he retired. Dude retired, and the company dug in his heels for months, then promoted the owner's nephew to the head IT job, and dude didn't even have a degree or know a goddamn thing about it. But he left and formed his own company with some other guys, and the dude who retired, they just bought the company he used to work for last year. Yeah, that's the biggest thing that a lot of people don't understand about IT, is that if you have someone who's super talented, they don't want to promote them because they find they're irreplaceable, right? But then the problem is that those people who are very capable have the easiest time finding a job somewhere else, or they'll start their own rival company because they know the system inside and out. So it's just, that's what I was talking about earlier about like the short-sightedness of these like executives, is that they're all so focused on like short-term growth that they don't consider the long-term ramifications of their decisions. Like the example I talked about at the credit union. RTO sounds great on paper until you realize that, oh crap, everybody who's really good at their job has enough skills to leverage a work from home position. I did. You know, my two coworkers did. All of us now are working in remote positions. All of us. And I can tell you that when I left, I made significantly more money leaving than I did at the credit union. Now I can tell you guys. You want to know what my salary in Southern California was for working in a specialized IT position in a credit union after 7 years of being there? You guys want to take a guess what my salary was? Where they started me and where I ended? $62K. MASH is very close. MASH is very, very close. 45K. No, I actually started out making more than 45K at that job. Raynella got it. I was making $65,000 a year after 7 years there. They were gonna bump me up to $70,000. But I made, when I started working there, I was at, I think it was like $26 an hour. So I think, yeah, it was like $26 an hour. So, and I think I finished at, yeah, at 65. I think it was between 65 and 70. And that was after 7 years there. And every year, people would talk about how the salaries were not keeping up with the cost of living, and every year the response would always be the same from HR, is that we're competitive in our industry. But the funny part is that they only considered other credit unions to be quote-unquote their industry, when, again, more short-sightedness. Almost anyone in IT and programming, those skills are transferable to almost any other tech company. So you're really competing against companies like Google and Microsoft with your tech. But for whatever reason, they could never figure that out. All right, thank you, Sinky. I will take a look at it in a little bit. I think Sargent also shared some music there. Thank you, Sargent. Much appreciated, everybody. But yeah, so that's what I talk about when I talk about, like, short-sightedness. Is it's like they're so focused on their, like, bottom line or whatever that they just look around and they're like, yeah, they lose sight of the forest for the trees, I guess. And it's just wild to me, because it's like, yeah, they had a really good IT team. Like, all three of us were really good at what we did. We knew the system inside and out. We came up with a lot of crazy stuff. And the best part is we were even being run by non-development IT managers, and we were still doing a good job. But it's just wild to me, because it's like, how do you have something that good and throw it away because you can't accept that work from home in the tech field is here to stay? Like, it's just so narrow-minded to me, and it's again a huge problem I find with a lot of leaders in general, not just in tech, but is that it's like, yeah, you know, if something doesn't go the way they want it to, they just reject it. Favorite Final Fantasy game? 7 or 10 for Sergeant? I'd probably say 7, but 16 is up there for me. I really liked 16 a lot. 6 is also probably high on my list. I'd probably put in order 7, 7, 6, 7, 16, and then 6. Six and 7 for Raynella. But yeah, anyway, that's just kind of my thoughts on the subject. It's just I have very strong opinions about, you know, the way I think that businesses should be run and the way you should treat human beings and your workers. And yeah, I mentioned with some of the statements, I didn't really mention what statements in mind, you know, so I'll give you some examples. The guy who's the CEO of Salesforce, and if you guys don't know Salesforce, Salesforce is basically a glorified middleware company where they sell software where they can like host things like internal services, sales services, you know, things like that. And basically they're a middleware company that sells the ability to, like, they have like a ready-made, like, built-in platform for, you know, like selling product or creating an intranet. And yeah, he was bragging about like how, oh, we just laid off like 4,000 workers using AI, and it's like, well, if you look at their headcount actually has gone up. So what he said is that they laid off 4,000 workers and then outsourced those jobs. AT1. Raynella says any game where she gets to see a white-haired man. True. But, and then the other one, I don't remember who the company was, but it was from, it's like from a Fortune 500. And this CEO basically publicly stated that the only thing workers were entitled to was a paycheck. A paycheck and a desk. That was it. Mark Bainoff. Yeah, that dumbass. Yeah. I think he's probably one of the dumbest CEOs I've ever had the displeasure of talking to. And yes, for those that do not know, I have spoken to him. He is a freaking idiot. I don't know how he got that position. I really don't. Yeah, he is very, very, very dumb. Now, I won't even give him SMRT. I would pick Homer Simpson over him. He is very, very much not a good person. I think all of you know, I do not like to say negative things about anybody. I met him at a conference. I didn't know who he was when I met him. And I walked away, and I asked my coworker, who the fuck was that idiot? And he's like, oh, I don't think he was the CEO of Salesforce at the time, but he's like, oh yeah, he's like this big shot. I don't even remember what company he was, but it's like, this was his name. It's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna remember that. I obviously didn't remember his name, but I recognized him when I saw him, you know, doing this freaking interview. And yeah, I'm like, oh, I remember him. He's probably the only major, like, quote-unquote CEO I've met. I haven't met a lot of people. But yeah, I met him at a tech conference a couple years ago. Oracle, that was it. Oracle. Yeah, that's how I knew him, because yeah, he was from Oracle at the time when I met him. And I was talking to him, and he was telling me about the plans they had. They were telling me about the plans they had for Java. And I was a Java programmer, and I just told them that you're going to kill the language. I don't think I said that exactly, because I'm not that confrontational. I'm certainly not that bold. But I remember just kind of trying to politely excuse myself from the conversation. And yeah, this dude, he had no idea what he was talking about. I think that's the politest way I can put it. He had no clue what he was talking about. And yeah, it was very obvious that he did not know what he was doing. He made a name building shitty games for Atari when he was a teenager. Fair enough. I mean, look, you got to start somewhere. I'm not going to judge him for that, because I'll be honest, I don't think I could even make games that were that, were as good as his. So I don't feel that I can criticize him on that, but I can criticize him when we were talking tech, because I was a Java programmer for, at that point, I think like 5 or 6 years. Professionally, 10, counting college, and I was listening to him talk about it, and it was like, what are you doing? But anyway, yeah, I don't have a lot of positive things to say about the guy, so I'm gonna move on, but yeah. Fake it till you make it, then keep faking it. Just like every partner that CEO has ever had. Yep. Yeah, let me double check. I want to make sure this is the same guy. I'm pretty sure it is, but I'm just going to double check and make sure. So if I'm going to shit talk someone, I at least want to make sure I'm shit talking the right one. Yeah, Mark. Yep, what an idiot this guy is. Yeah, he bought Time, which was the magazine, the New York magazine. Let's see, he was in Oracle, and then, yeah, so he wasn't at Oracle at the time when I talked to him. He was in Salesforce. Because, yeah, he's the founder of Salesforce. He founded that in 1999. And, yeah, the reason I met him is because we had, he was doing a presentation for his intranet product over at Salesforce. And this would have been in like 2017, 2018. It was right before COVID hit, and we were looking at Salesforce as an option to host our new intranet service. And I was asked to sit in his lecture about it. And I had the pleasure of talking to him afterwards. I didn't know he was the CEO, because I arrived late. For those that don't know, the conference was in San Diego, which was like a 3-hour drive for me in traffic. So I ended up missing the introduction, but I stuck around for the Q&A afterwards, and I was not impressed with him. But yeah. He's the only, like, major tech CEO I've ever met in person. I hate cookie-cutter online-based CRM software. Isn't that pretty much Salesforce's bread and butter? Isn't that, like, all they really offer is the cookie-cutter CRM software? Yeah, I've only used 2 Salesforce products. One was their, like, intranet hosting service. I don't remember the name of that one. Let me see if I can find it. I'm curious. They're now advertising themselves as the #1 AI CRM, which is hilarious because none of their shit probably works. Yeah, so they have their intranet. It's called Unbound Intranet. And I don't want to say it was garbage, because it wasn't. It was actually fairly decent, but I do know the price was far too expensive for what we were paying for it. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it wasn't worth that much. But yeah, it was Unbound Intranet is what we were sitting for a presentation on. Anytime your buddy who's in cybersecurity hears someone thinking about Salesforce software solutions, it tells them, "Don't call me when your shit gets breached." Yeah. I'll be honest, I didn't know much about that until my last job when I was working for the government. I learned a lot more about security there. For me, my biggest problem when I was at the credit union was trying to teach a bunch of non-technical people how to use technical software. And in that regard, like, the CRM cookie cutter stuff was pretty good. But I will say that the lack of flexibility, where we ran into problems and where a lot of people run into issues, was when security issues happened. That's a big one. But the other one is when you wanted to do anything beyond the standard cookie cutter formula for CRM. Those were the two biggest issues we ran into. Was very quickly the powers that be, when they learned the limitations of the cookie cutter CRM software, that's when it ran into issues.
Before we take a chance and do it, before we looking back, it's foolish. Oh, if it's love, then you can keep it. I did it on my own. 'Cause if it's love, then I don't need it.
But yeah, beyond that, I can't really comment a ton on like the actual performance of the software, because my role was basically, hey, I'm here to provide tech support and to answer any questions and to kind of walk through like logical stuff that, you know, maybe most people don't know. But yeah, that's one of the biggest issues a lot of people run into and a lot of companies run into with like any sort of cookie cutter type software, is that it's great to do a really specific thing, but the moment you want to do anything beyond that really specific thing, you can't. Not without having to pay a buttload of money for customization services. And that's where a lot of these companies like Salesforce make their money. Is that they make their money by charging you a base price or early trial price, and then they jack up the cost once you're reliant on their system. Microsoft does it. Microsoft is really notorious for that. Google is notorious for that. Amazon's notorious for that. There's a lot of examples I could give, but yeah. Time to go and join an early morning Zoom meeting you don't actually need to be in. That could probably be an email or Slack message from me later. Alright, sounds good, T1. I've definitely been there. Kicked Windows to the curb on both your Office PCs. Oh, are you using, did you switch over to Linux? Mash? Because I know Linux is like a really good option right now. Nobara Linux. Okay, I don't know much about Nobara. To be honest, I don't even know a ton about Linux. Most of my specialty is in programming rather than like actual computer software. And the one I'm most familiar with is Windows, because, as I'm sure you guys can imagine, that's primarily what I use. Do I know who the Glorious Egg Roll is? I can't say I do. No, I can't say I do. Glorious Egg Roll is really only known within the Linux gaming community. Oh, does he, or they, I should say, are they part of the group that is trying to make a bunch of, like, Windows-only games available to play on Linux? Software developer, works for Red Hat. Super smart dude in the field, straight otaku as fuck too. Nobara is his personal distro. Okay. Because yeah, as you can see, I'm not like totally ignorant about it, but I will confess, if you were to ask me any real questions about Linux, I know very little other than it's an open source alternative operating system with a very dedicated community that has been steadily growing in popularity since 2007. That's about the extent I know Linux for. I can't say I know a lot about, like, the internal workings of the OS. I can't say I know a lot about, you know, the Linux community or the setup involved. I gotta be honest, I barely know, I barely know, basic, like, OS features. Proton patches for Steam games. Yeah, I do know a little bit about Proton because a friend of mine is a Linux-only user. He doesn't use Windows at all. So there's a lot of games that are not compatible that we can't play because of that, but that's okay. He designed Nobara for his older father to be able to use it easily. Yeah, that's awesome, because I do know that, like, that was what gained Windows popularity in the early days, was Windows had a very simple, easy-to-use interface. And, not so much now, because Microsoft doesn't know how to... Microsoft is a marketing company that disguises themselves as a programming company. But, that's another discussion. Sergeant McIntyre can build a Proton pack from scratch? I think that counts. You have more knowledge in that area than I do. I absolutely think that counts. Anti-cheat makes it hard for games to run on Linux. Yeah, that's... I can see that. Oh, there we go. Okay. Let's check and see where we are. Alright, we need the band, a box, and a half box. Buddy who lives with me is a Power Linux user also. He personally uses Arch Linux. Shit is too complicated. Use Linux Mint, but it's a fork of Ubuntu and has its own issues, so your buddy set me up with Nobara. Yeah, with Linux, Mint is the only one I have any real, like, experience with. And when I say experience, I watched a friend install it once. Just being completely honest and straightforward with you guys. Mint is user-friendly to a point. Yeah, don't cross streams. This isn't Ghostbusters, silly. We're fine. It'll be okay. We got this. We got this. Sinky also uses Arch Linux. Linux Mint no longer supports Steam because you can't install the required packages anymore. Yeah, I think that's why. And this was back in like 2010. Why we were using Linux Mint is because you could use Steam with it, but it just sounds like either Mint moved on or it's not supported anymore. So we're missing the band and a half box. Alright, here's the band. Okay. missed one of the tunnel trends, and then we have, yeah, the quad bike, which we haven't touched yet. I think we have everything else, though. Mint remove 32-bit library packages, which are a requirement for Steam to run properly. That makes sense. Usual Windows stupidity developed into the Phison controller issues with the recent updates. Got pissed and pulled the trigger. Yeah, I mean, hey, you know, I put up with Windows because I, you know, as a streamer, I kind of need to, you know, but when I say I put up with Windows, I very barely put up with Windows. It is more of like it is more of like, man, I really wish I had a better alternative than oh yay, I get to use Windows type thing. Particularly because Microsoft again doesn't understand how to make a good OS, but that's another story. Like you talk about spaghetti code, oh my god, Microsoft is like the worst at that. They really are. Streamer Windows is nice, not having to worry about which games can you play with other people. Yeah. That's kind of the two big things, is like, I don't blame anyone who switches off Windows one bit, but for me, it's just, I have too much I rely on that is unfortunately Windows exclusive. Windows kernel is a hot mess. Isn't even right. It isn't even the right word. Fucked. That's the right word. Yeah. I have, again, I'm not a big like OS guy, so I can't sit here and act all high and mighty like, oh, I know everything about it, but it's like, I know bad software. Let me put it that way. I have worked with and know bad software. The Windows kernel is bad software. And I highly doubt it's going to get better anytime soon. Partially because of the sunken cost fallacy. But also because I don't think that Microsoft's leadership is willing to invest the time and money it would be required to make the changes they would need to make. Hey, TechWiz, yes, we are. We've actually had a very tech-heavy conversation today. Apologies to all of my non-technical listeners today, but Silly's hung in there, and if Silly's hung in there, then I figured, you know, all of you guys should be fine too. But yeah, we've talked, we're Windows bashing, we talked about Salesforce and how I met the current, the CEO. I would say current CEO, but he's been the CEO or the co-CEO pretty much since the company was founded. So we've been talking a lot about that. We've been bashing a lot of people today, TechWiz. This has very much been a leaders in tech are dumb type of stream, if I'm being honest. Because, yeah, MASH is pretty technically proficient, Sinky is extremely technically proficient, and you guys all know my career at this point, so... So I can't code and design software to save my ass, but I can debug and find problems in software like nobody's business, and Windows isn't just a dumpster fire, it's a whole damn trash dump burning. Yeah. It's funny, MASH. My entire career has been coding, and I would describe my skill set the same way you just did. I don't feel I'm a great coder, but I'm very good at testing people's code, identifying issues, stack tracing, and the other thing I'm particularly good at, like if you were to ask me what's my strongest suit, you need me to learn something, I can learn it. Retain it? Probably not. Learn it, though? Absolutely. Heh, you just described AI. The thing is, AI can't even identify what's wrong either, though. That's the best part. I'm tech light because not my thing, but I know some stuffs. Y'all just know more stuffs. Yeah, I think most people today are, you know, fall into some category of tech light. Applied for a local job with your local government building, and they actually said they wanted people skilled in using LibreOffice because they're getting fed up with Microsoft. Yeah, because you know Microsoft's strategy is they offer you a low rate early, and then once that contract expires, you have to renew. They nickel and dime you on everything. Mash's forte is mostly hardware. Yeah, mine's pretty much software. I'm not really a hardware guy either. TechWiz can testify to that, because TechWiz helped me build my new PC. It's not to say that I don't know anything, but it's just I don't keep up with everything, and like I'm gonna be honest, even like talking to you guys right now about all this, I kind of feel I kind of have this like creeping sense of like being overwhelmed by just the sheer amount of like stuff that's involved. I also think that, you know, not getting a lot of sleep last night isn't helping, but like I can definitely tell you that I'm talking to some of you guys, like talking to Sinky, for example, about some things, because Sinky is extremely knowledgeable. For those that do not know, Sinky is very, very knowledgeable in a lot of things tech related. I kind of get a little overwhelmed sometimes. I'm sorry to hear that, Mash. Mash says he slept like dog poo-poo as well. Once I had to use AI for a class, it was required. I told the AI to fix one little thing. It kept writing out the exact same broken code. It was required to basically vibe code, and I said, fuck this, I'm going to do actual code. I don't want to talk about vibe coding, because that will be a very unpleasant conversation. I have very little respect for vibe coders. I'll just leave it at that. And you guys know me. I usually like to stay positive. I don't like to, you know, be negative. But yeah, I have very little respect for vibe coders as a whole. And I'll just say this, it's not the individual vibe coders. It's because the idea of vibe coding envisions a scenario that will never happen in the real world. And that's all I'll say. That's all I'll say. TechWiz says, I think vibe coding is the future, unfortunately, and I can absolutely see AI becoming the new age compiler. Yeah, I actually, so maybe this will surprise you. I can agree with that. I can agree with that. I think that I can see that happening as well. All right. We're gonna have this conversation. Give me a second. Sounds good, Rainella. Sinky's here, so don't stress, okay? Have fun with Josh. All right. Here's my issue with vibe coding. For those that don't know what vibe coding is, vibe coding is basically where you work with a AI assistant to create and generate code, where the actual human involved doesn't need to know the ins and outs of the programming language and kind of has the gist, the vibe of what they want, and the AI will fill in the blanks. That's the idea. The issue with vibe coding, as things stand right now, and why I say it's not realistic and where my issue with them is that the quote-unquote vibe coders, the current AI is not good enough, as I've talked about multiple times today. The current AI is not good enough to actually give out good code more than 25% of the time. So what happens is that when you have a vibe coder and the AI spits out incorrect code that doesn't work, the vibe coder has no idea what's wrong or how to fix it. And then what happens is they have to spend a bunch of time learning what is the code to try and find the error anyway. That's why I don't respect vibe coders. That's why I don't respect anyone pushing vibe coders right now. And I have to preface with right now because I do agree with TechWiz that I can absolutely see it eventually getting better. But right now, like TechWiz points out, the current trend of making an LLM do it is not at all the correct solution, but the saying about a new shiny hammer. Exactly. You have to find the right way to do it. And that's why I don't respect this current vibe code. Why I have a very low opinion of it in general is because they are operating off of a best case scenario with the AI rather than the worst case scenario. And the thing is, time and time again, is if you operate on anything, assuming everything is going to go well, and it doesn't matter what aspect of business it is, whether it's the supply chain or the programming or the development or whatever. And I know programming and development can be the same thing, but like QA can also be considered programming. You can't go into any project assuming that everything is going to hit every target. You cannot. It does not work out that way, ever. There will be an unexpected snag. You will have overlooked something. There is always something that will be missing. So you need people for the ins and outs to make up for where your computerized assistant falls short. And I'll be completely honest. Vibe coding is as it is right now, is nothing more than a lazy way to try and save money. It is a short-term, short-sighted solution to try and save money. Just like the entire AI trend. It's not viable. It doesn't work the way it's supposed to. And at the end of the day, it's going to cause and cost more money and more time than it will save. As of right now. I don't know what it will be like in the future if they can actually improve the AI systems, but I hate to sound like a broken record, but again, if you don't have the money and resources of Google and you think you can do better than them, you're a fool. You're an arrogant fool who has no idea about the ins and outs of technology, let alone the specifics and the nuances required into programming languages and machine learning and all the other stuff that goes into quote-unquote AI. Like TechWiz says, you still need a pretty decent background in tech to be able to identify if and when the AI is wrong and how to fix it. The bare minimum requirement a vibe coder needs to have is they need to be able to read and understand a stack trace. That is the bare minimum requirement. If they can't do that, tough shit. They're going to be in a world of hurt the moment something goes wrong. And as I have stated before, there is the Google AI consistently gets basic things wrong, like basic math. It gets it wrong consistently. But there was a question the other day about, like, how long ago was 2020? How long ago was 2020? And it kept and the AI kept insisting it was 24 years ago. But again, it's a bunch of people in power who think they have all the answers. The irony is, and bear with me, this is going to probably drive you up the wall, the open source stuff is legitimately better. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. It's the, what's it called? Enshittification. Guys, it is like really hot in here. I think I need to go turn on the AC. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. It turns out, yes, the AC was indeed off. I must have turned it off when I let my dog out this morning. It is 82 degrees in my house. It's not as all-encompassing, but it's much more flexible, especially with a RAG stack that gets you 80% of the way, where OpenAI or Anthropic can go for free running on your gaming GPU. Yeah. So the thing is with the open source, the enshittification, it's kind of the cycle, the business cycle. How do I explain this? When a company first starts off, like let's use Netflix as an example, right? They're incentivized to make things as easy, efficient, and as costless to the consumer as possible to build up their base. That's how they earn a profit. They need to build up their customer base. So a lot of for-profit software starts off pretty decently. But then what happens is, as more and more people get to use it, more and more features are demanded or requested, and it becomes harder and harder to maintain those profit margins. So you then have to either raise the price, or you have to add in other things like ads to generate other revenue streams. So in order to get more and more profit, once everyone's relying on it, you then need to squeeze more and more money out of your base, out of your customer base, which usually results in a trade-off of making the product more and more crappy and it costing more and more to run. Like Netflix, them adding ads, them raising the price every year. And that's in the game of chasing endless profits, always trying to justify it to shareholders. Open source doesn't have that issue of trying to please shareholders, so they're not chasing endless profits. So the goal of open source never usually shifts from let's create the best product to the most profitable product. That's probably a gross oversimplification, but that is the pattern. We see it constantly, especially in the realm of tech. We've seen it with Google, we've seen it with Microsoft, we've seen it with Starbucks, with almost every major company you can think of. Once they hit a certain point of profitability and size, there's no competing with them anymore, so they can just milk their customers for all they're worth over and over and over again. And the speed of enshittification with AI, a big part of that is because of the ability for AI to do so many more calculations. You know, like Tech was, you alluded to this earlier, but the AI can do so much more calculations than an individual person. And the problem is that you have all these AI systems that are borrowing from each other, so they're enshittifying at a much faster rate. But yeah, like Tekwa says, we went from bubble to bust in less than 18 months. Which even the .com bubble lasted longer than that. But yeah, I think you guys know, I really don't take pleasure in watching people fail. I'll make an exception for AI companies. It has been very entertaining to me to watch these companies go from like the media and tech darling to being bashed in almost every major technical related piece of media available almost overnight. As more and more people begin to realize that the entire premise of AI has not only failed, but has been nothing but a glorified grift aimed at gullible CEOs who will spend any amount of money to screw over their workers. It really and truly has been something I take great satisfaction in watching happen. And, you know, again, I've talked about this before. I'm not anti, machine learning. Machine learning has existed in a large number of forms for decades now. I absolutely feel there is a place for what they're calling AI right now. I really do. I think there is a place. But what it's being used for currently and how it's being used, it's not it. And the idea that they want to try to use it as a shortcut to basically steal jobs from workers in the name of generating more short-term profit. It's incredibly short-sighted, and it's going to cause a ton of damage even in the most ideal situation. Because it's like, if you're replacing workers and they can't find a job, they can't buy your product. So, and if they can't buy your product, you can't make money. Like, it's not rocket science. But, like I said, greed and, greed and poor, piss-poor leadership from all walks of business are what's got us here. It's gonna take quite a lot for us to get out of it. Heck whiz, but if I fire them, line go up. Again, it's just I've talked about this before, but we have a generation of business leaders right now that all they are focused on is short-term profit rather than long-term sustainability.
Heartbroken nights filled with nightmares. I feel lonely. Feel tight in the fear in the breathing. When you're not with me, I would dream about the end of the world. I would see the heavens been catching fire. I feel the end is near. I was sitting and I
Just got your 10 unit hooked up to your lower back. Best decision you made all day. Hell yeah, Sinky. So we'll probably wrap up this job, and then I'll probably wrap up for the day. We have been going for 2 hours, which is awesome. That flew by. Thank you guys very much for that conversation. This is probably just me being a little insecure, so, you know, silly, if you want to yell at me, that's fine. But I really hope that conversation wasn't, like, just super negative. You know, I always feel bad because I do really try to keep it a positive vibe, but it's like, man, you know, there's just some areas where it's hard to be positive and also speak the truth. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I don't feel like viewership was affected too negatively by it at all, but it's just one of those things I like to be, you know, aware of. But I hope you guys had a good time. I want to thank Sinky and Mash and Sergeant and TechWiz for all participating in that conversation. I do appreciate you guys. I want to thank Sergeant for coming in and hanging out with us today, by the way. Very cool to make a new friend. And again, please consider following Sarge Dog, or Sergeant McIntyre, rather. Sarge Dog is a different one.
Victory screech!
I kind of do the Zoidberg thing for that. I'm glad, Mash. And it sounds like Sergeant McIntyre is too, which I appreciate. I promise, Sergeant, I don't normally talk this much about tech on my streams. Today's just a day for it, I guess. But I do feel... I do feel that it was a good conversation. I don't feel we were overly harsh. I don't think we just bashed anybody except for that one CEO from Salesforce. But, yeah. No, and it's just because, you know, and Sinky, I'll be honest. The reason I don't talk about it a ton is because it's my job. And it's not a job I particularly enjoy. Like, it's not what gets me up in the morning. It's not my passion. So, you know, again, it's not a, and not only that, but it's like, when compared to, like, you, or MASH fan, or TechWiz, I actually don't have as much knowledge as I think a lot of people may think I do. So it's tough for me to kind of hold those kind of conversations, at least when I'm, you know, talking in chat, because it's like, I'll be talking and then you guys will have to type out whatever it is, right? So that's the main reason I don't talk about it a lot. It's just because it's like, it's not really my passion. It's just something I have to do to earn my paycheck. Yeah, why bring work home? Exactly. Especially when I already work from home. Heyo! Can't actually play BC Building Sim because it feels too much like your own job. Yep, that's fair. I did the find someone to pay you for your passion route. Yeah. Dang, was if I can ask, what's your passion? Jury's still out if it was a good idea, but it paid well. Yeah, Dang was if I can ask, what is your passion? Because I know we've talked like kind of in circles, but I don't think I've ever actually asked you like what it is you do. And if you don't want to share it, you don't have to. But, you know, maybe this is just me being a bad friend, but... You know, what is your passion? Because I know TechWiz is extremely knowledgeable about hardware, for example. I just like tinkering with the computer systems and services. Hell yeah! No, I think that's awesome. And I'm glad it pays well. You know, for me, I'm gonna be honest. Streaming is probably my biggest passion right now. TechWiz says I do system architecture and design on the side and did Linux systems engineering for Corpa for 10 years. Hell yeah. That's pretty awesome, man. Yeah, I'm hoping to one day kind of get into a similar position to you where it's like I can do something on the side and still have all my bills and stuff paid. So my big thing right now, and I don't mind sharing this with you guys, but it's like, my big thing is with like this current job, I'm going to be using it to probably try to pay off my house. So I'll be putting a lot of extra money into my like mortgage to try and pay that off faster. And then once my bills are, you know, down significantly, I'll probably try to find like a part-time job or something where I don't have to stress as much. And I can put more of my attention into my passion, because I've been very open about this. My two probably biggest passions, the two things I love to do the most, streaming is number one. This is by far and away my favorite thing to do, and it's not even close. I love streaming. I love everything about it. I love hanging out with you guys. And, you know, I don't talk a lot about, you know, what I think I'm good at, right? You know, I don't like to brag. I don't like to, you know, give myself maybe as much credit as I should. But I do feel I'm actually really good at streaming. I think I'm a very good streamer. I think that the success I've had, the connections I've been able to build with people in the space, I think that's a testimony to how good I am at this. And I don't think that's being arrogant or, you know, being too braggadocious. I really don't. You know, maybe you guys will disagree with me, but, you know, I can respect that. But that's how I feel. Is I feel I'm very, very good at streaming. And I think, you know, maybe this is arrogant, but I do think I can do this full-time someday. Thank you, Sinky. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's fair. And Sinky, for what it's worth, I absolutely think... I think you could be very successful at laptop repair. I definitely think you have the brain for it. I think you have the mind for it. I think you could be very, very good at it. I really do. I think you could be fantastic at it. But my other passion that I mentioned, because I have two, I mentioned streaming is number one. I love world building, man. I love stories. I love creating. I think that's been, I don't think that's exactly a secret with how much I, talk about D&D and stuff like that. But I really and truly do love to create. And I think creating a world with you guys in, like, about 2 weeks on stream is going to be awesome. I think I'm going to have so much fun with it. And, Tegwis, I would love to hear whenever you kind of settle on whether you think it was a good idea or not to monetize your passions. Because, as you know, I'm working towards doing that right now. I can tell you guys, though, honestly, that out of everything I've ever done to make money in my life, streaming is by far and away the one I've enjoyed the most. And it's not even a competition. Only thing you can advise is to be aware that others will be eager to abuse the fact that you do not need the weight of time when you are focused on your passion. I think that's really good advice. I think that's really, really good advice, Techwiz. Thank you. I think you guys, all of you guys, have been dropping some really good, like, pearls of wisdom today. Just for the record. There's been a couple pieces that I've been like, damn.
You can blame me, think you can break me, but baby, I don't have the time. No, 'cause once you hurt me, I'll try and fool me, I'll just erase you out my life. You got me wrong, thought I wasn't strong enough without you, but I'm so done, I'm moving on. I'm gonna be stronger now without you, but I'm so done. Can't love you anymore, I'm closing all my doors for you.
We warshin', yes we are, Vin. How you doing, bud? Hope you're doing alright. We've missed you and Puma in the streaming circles. I hope you guys, hope you liked the little GIF I left for you guys on Sunday. It's good to see you, man. GIF. I left a, when you had to announce that you were canceling stream, I left you a nice GIF in your Discord for you. I was hoping you guys would see it and know you are loved. Got a bunch of old hardware to play around designing our own network here at home. Server, switch, etc. Multiple computers already here. Yeah, I have a minor network here between, like, my my main PC and my yeah, of course, man, of course. But yeah, like networking, I would say out of, like, everything in IT, networking is probably my weakest zone. I understand a lot of it conceptually. I'm more talking practically, but yeah. You have a server rack in your basement and a 10 GBE in the walls. Your house is Tech Bro Sanctuary. Hell yeah. We ran out of metal cleaner. Oh no. You seem to collect vintage IBM models. Makes sense because your aunt retired from there. IBM and I have beef at the moment. They're one of the companies that auto rejected my resume despite having a matching experience literally one-to-one with their job requirement. Five floppies? Oh, hell yeah. Now, here's the thing. Are they the original floppies, or are they the more, I say modern floppies, but more like the late-term floppies that actually have, like, a plastic case covering? You have both, but that one is the OG ones. Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, I'll never forget, at one of my first jobs I ever worked, one of my coworkers showed me the old cards with the different holes in them. I don't know if you guys remember those. Like the 2-foot square? Yeah. They were basically like giant punch cards. And she was surprised I knew what those were. I'm like, well, my grandfather was intact. And he had a lot of old stuff that I used to play around with as a kid. Including, like, the original floppy disks and, stuff like that. I'm old, but was lucky. We've been using computers since the TRS-80 days. Yeah, the first computer we had in my house was Windows 95. It's the earliest one I remember. But my mom did have a typewriter.
Well, what about love of our friends? Isn't that stated now? You're beginning to understand.
Manual still and a word processor. The IMB old portable was what gave me for college rather than buy a word processor and a dot matrix printer with a controller. A continue fed paper. Oh, I remember those. Yeah, we had one of those as well. The continue fed paper printers. I do remember that. Alrighty. Monkey used to work for IBM, and when they laid him off, people was afraid to hire him because he dropped out of college. And he worked at IBM for 20 years. Yeah. Alright, so let's see. Looks like we got almost everything for the Jeep. So it's just the motorboats left. There we go. Alright. Deck trims and mooring hooks. Anne was one of the dying breed. She only had 3 jobs her entire life, and she's 72. Dairy Queen in high school, Texas Instruments after college for a decade, and then IBM until the 20-teens. Yeah, that doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. There's a lot of reasons for that, but... Of course they are. Well, we don't need to get into that. There we go. We did it. Alrighty. Well, YouTube, that's going to do it for me. Thank you very much for watching and hanging out while we listen to music and talked. Sorry it got so technical today, but I still hope you enjoy the conversation. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time, okay? Bye-bye!